Hi, this is my review of The Cursed Chateau. The Cursed Chateau is a horror adventure for the Lamentations of the Flame Princess role-playing game, but it can be used with any other old-school Renaissance RPG. I think this is probably a masterpiece when it comes to horror adventures. Personally, I think that there are a couple of things that could keep it from being a masterpiece in my perception of things, but I recommend it as a masterpiece because those couple of things could actually be positive things for other referees or game masters. I'm actually pretty excited of reviewing this because Halloween is just some days away, and I think this is a cool adventure to run at that particular time. Now let's talk about the quality of the PDF. The quality is excellent. Everything is very well written, very well explained. The graphic design looks really nice, really elegant for this horror yet a classy horror adventure. You have bookmarks, so it's going to be quite easily to navigate the entire thing. You have these awesome looking illustrations because they look horrifying, but at the same time they look really cool. And near the end of the module, you have all these referee aids, all the different tables and stats and maps, so you can run the adventure quite easily. So this module is perfect. It thinks on how to make things easier and smooth to run the entire module. So everything is great. Oh, there are no maps at the end, but the maps are spread out through the entire document, but they are in the relevant areas and the different sections of the chateau. And at the beginning you have all the maps together, so as I was telling you, it's quite easy to navigate the entire thing. Now let's talk about the contents. First of all, you have an introduction of the sources that were used as inspiration for this adventure, and I think that the author, James Malisiewski, did an awesome job. I think he actually surpassed some of the horror movies that he mentioned in the beginning, because the plotline is really cool. It's basically this. You have this sort of like a dilettante type of character. He is the lord of the chateau. He is Jodain Ayarai. And Jodain became really bored with life. He's basically really rich, but his parents passed away, and he's kind of bored with life. He has no family and he only lives surrounded by his servants. And so he's thinking of how to satisfy his curiosity, how to relieve himself from all that boredom. So he taps into the dark arts of necromancy. And just for fun, he starts killing his servants almost systematically. There's also some random deaths, but he starts killing his members of his household. And later on he raises them as these, they're kind of like zombies, but they're not like your dumb zombies, they're not like brains. These guys still have a bit of intelligence to them, so that makes them creepier. They feel like really fast, really intelligent, hellish zombies. And he also indulges in all sorts of depravity and vices. That there are several levels of intoxication, both literally and metaphorically. So eventually he ends up killing almost everyone in the household. Some of the other servants die of natural causes or accidents, so to speak. So he eventually discovers this ritual that will allow him to transcend into some sort of like a spiritual state in which he will be able to travel the planes of existence. But something goes wrong in the ritual while he commits sort of like a ceremonial suicide. He actually gets his spirit bound or trapped inside the chateau. So now you have a very bored necromancer spirit trapped in this chateau. The structure is kind of like the body of the spirit, and he is very bored, and to relieve that boredom, to find a bit of entertainment, he takes it all out on any unfortunate individual that enters the chateau. And that's basically the plotline of the adventure. there are many ways in which you can integrate this adventure into your campaign. If you're handling sort of like a sandbox type of campaign, which I think is the best way to handle this adventure, you could place the chateau in a convenient place so that the characters get have the temptation of exploring this area to see if there's treasure. Or maybe they're traveling through a very dangerous area and they're looking for shelter. Maybe there's a storm or whatever, or maybe some monsters chase them down into the chateau. There are many ways in which you can get the characters into this structure. And if you have like player characters that are quite suspicious of things, you could have several like magical entrances if you wanted to. That's not recommended in or mentioned in the module, but I'm thinking that you could, for example, say, oh, you have several roads, which one do you wish to take? And all of those roads could take to the Cursed Chateau. Maybe it's some sort of like an illusion. But if you're handling a sort of like a story arc, you could say that a relative of the Ayarai of Judain, wants to hire them to explore this area, the property, and see if there's anything valuable, so that that relative can take possession of it. And that's actually advised in this module. So there are a lot of useful tips on how to get your characters into this Cursed Chateau. There are a few mechanics that are essential, perhaps even vital, for this adventure to run quite originally and excellently when compared to other horror adventures. First of all, you have a lot of random events. You have an entire table of things that could happen as the player characters navigate the outside and the inside of the chateau. So you are never going to know exactly what is going to happen. This is a pleasant surprise for the referee. It brings a lot of fun and randomness to the adventures. Some of the events are just there to unnerve and scare the player characters. Maybe they enter a room and they see like a deck of playing cards, but they are stained with fresh blood. Or maybe they enter this room and they see a statue or a painting, and suddenly the statue or the painting screams the name of a player character, and it says something like "Flee while you still can" or something. So you could find bats, all sorts of gooey things like blood dripping from the walls or some sort of slime. And many of those things are just there to unnerve, as I was telling you, the player characters, but other things could actually damage the player characters, like direct attacks from the tortured spirits of the chateau. And you could actually bump into some of the non-player characters of this chateau, many of the undead servants. There are also ghostly servants that are roaming around the area. And depending on the room that they find them in, or depending on the reaction that you will get, because you could roll on the reaction table from the Lamentations of a Flame Princess core rulebook, the encounters will vary, so you do not know what to expect. You can't simply see this undead thing coming into contact with you and start attacking it, because maybe it's in a talkative mood, and you could perhaps interrogate that presence as to, oh, what are you doing here, what's going on here, and you may actually get some clues as to what is going on in this Cursed Chateau. And another important detail is, once the characters get into the chateau, they cannot get out. The entrance is basically a hedge maze that was supernaturally moved to the front of the chateau, and it reminds me a bit of the hedge maze in the Blood PC game that is also a tribute to The Shining. So it's a very cool place to get into the chateau and start feeling that dread that escalates as the adventure goes on. And once they go into the chateau grounds, there is this magical barrier that does not allow the characters to escape from the chateau. When it comes to the household staff, here's one of the things that I would consider slightly negative, but it depends on your preference, and it's that all of them are highly detailed, but some of them miss a few details when comparing them to the others. So you're going to see this non-player character and it says, oh, he died when he cheated on his wife with this other woman or whatever. And then you have different causes of death. However, there are some non-player characters that do not have the like explicit causes of death. So I was always wondering, oh, how did she die? It doesn't say. And well, some of you could see it as a positive thing, like you could fill in the blanks and create your own tragic death for some of the non-player characters. But I would have preferred it if they included the cause of death for all of the characters. But either way, each character is highly detailed. All of these undead, nasty creatures have the different things that they did in life. Maybe they were good, they were bad. Either way, they all became the servants of Jourdain, and it's quite entertaining. If you're a referee that when reading a scary adventure or whatever likes to explore the possibilities of all these non-player characters and their background information, you're going to find additional material for perhaps even further adventures into the Cursed Chateau. And all of these undead non-player characters have their own powers, abilities, stats, weaknesses, etc. You also have tips on how to use the household staff, because as I was telling you, you may find them randomly in the different areas of the chateau, or maybe there are some keyed rooms in which they are doing something, and there's always a strong element of randomness. So as I was telling you, some of these characters, even the more hostile ones, could actually serve as sources of information of the castle, and some of them are quite psychotic in their attitude. They could actually attack you right away. So it's quite a surprise. Every encounter feels like a surprise. Now there's another important mechanic when it comes to the chateau. In fact, it's probably the most important mechanic within the chateau, and it's how to escape the chateau. And this, I consider it again potentially negative. It depends. The only way to escape the chateau is to entertain Jourdain. So if you do many things that put the player characters in danger, that is, if the players get their characters in many dangerous, scary situations, you will entertain Jourdain and you will accumulate points. So maybe you start suffering a lot of wounds, or maybe you investigate a lot of creepy areas in the castle, or maybe you engage combat. Maybe you start cursing fate or the gods or whatever because you cannot get out of the castle or the chateau. Well, you start gaining points to the point that you will accumulate 100 points. If you accumulate 100 points, Jourdain will be released from his curse, and you will be able to leave the chateau. And I think all of the non-player characters that are undead, all of the household members, will cease to exist. But in contrast, anything that is potentially positive for the player characters will make you lose points of entertainment, these points that will keep Jourdain entertained. So maybe you are healing yourself, or maybe you attack some of the non-player characters that Jourdain is most fond of, after a manner of speaking. Or maybe you start desecrating some of the favorite areas of Jourdain. Then you will start losing points and he will not be entertained, and you could basically remain in the chateau trapped forever. And why do I think that this is potentially negative? Just because of a single thing. I think it would have been nice if the author included more ways to escape the chateau, perhaps 2 or 3 more ways, because it's not that it's a bad mechanic, but the entire area of the chateau just lends itself quite well to having different avenues of escape. Everything is so well built that you could perhaps put something like, if the player characters move this mysterious statue in the altar in the lower levels, they create a gateway to escape. Or if the player characters use this magical potion on that incense burner over there, they could actually solidify Jourdain, and they will be able to fight against Jourdain or something like that. And but still, it's a good thing that they didn't add something to escape the castle too easily, because I remember in a Ravenloft module from some time ago, I'm not going to say which one to keep it spoiler free, but it's basically like a haunted house of sorts. And the only way to escape it is to do something quite nonsensical, something that a player character wouldn't normally do, but maybe somebody is role playing as a crazy player character, and even if you enter that haunted location, maybe that player character does that thing almost immediately and you win the adventure almost immediately. So as I was telling you, it's more like a neutral point. Maybe you actually like the idea of having to forcibly entertain Judain to escape the chateau. Now let's talk about the areas. As I was telling you, you have the hedge maze first, and it's basically this labyrinth with many areas with where you can dig under bushes and trees, or you can find ancient statues, sculptures, and whatnot. And many of these things are basically traps. Some of them are enemies. Some statues animate. You could find corpses buried under different bushes and trees, and that actually could attract the attention of some of the household undead servants. But there are a lot of positive things here too, because some of the fruits that are found in this hedge maze could actually heal you, and some of other things too, like there's a cup that you fill with water. It could turn into some sort of like a medicine, but it's also it takes a lot of guesswork. As you know, this is an old school adventure, so you have to be sure of when to push your luck, because sometimes that which could actually heal you could also kill you as well. But if the player characters survive this hedge maze, they're going to be able to explore further into the chateau grounds. Something that is quite, what would you say, obvious from the start is that the different areas of the chateau and the surrounding area have some details, but not too much, allowing you enough room to work the random encounters into those particular locations, rooms, and whatnot. So you're going to find many rooms with, oh, this room has this furniture and it has these paintings and etc. But so they at first seem empty, but that's because the random events will create a situation within those rooms. And now don't think that many of those rooms are empty. I'm talking about what is probably a minority of the rooms. Most of the rooms are going to have some very interesting thing within them, and just at the very start, just outside the castle, you're going to find, for example, a fountain that has this yucky looking water, and if you drink from it, it could actually give you some sort of healing, or you could again end up affected by something, or it could even kill you immediately. It's all about taking a risk. So you could visit the well and the smithy, and that's something that I really enjoy of the Cursed Chateau. And there's always something to explore, something that I enjoy in tabletop role-playing games and in video games. It's all of those little details, all of those secret rooms and areas that you feel like there's a story behind that. You find a lot of that here, and it's going to be quite entertaining for the referee to reveal little by little perhaps through talking with the undead servants, or by reading documents and just piecing together different clues. The player characters are going to find out exactly what happened in certain rooms. Some other thing that I really enjoyed is that some traps aren't as obvious as they would seem. You could enter a room and you could say, find, for example, someone sleeping that looks pretty much alive, and you could think, oh no, that's actually an evil non-player character is going to rise up and attack us, but it's not that. Maybe that was a house guest that long ago visited Judain, and Judain poisoned that character with a special poison that preserves the body as if it were still alive. But it's the body of an evil wizard, and he summoned sort of like an elemental spirit before going to sleep to protect his body. And because he has already died but he looks alive, the elemental spirit still thinks that it's protecting his summoner, and it will attack the non-player characters. There are also many demons that were left there bound to a specific area, a circle, an altar, and they are still there because Judain carelessly did not banished them or gave them sort of like a license to depart, and so they will attack the player characters, or they will try to negotiate with them. There are many areas you're going to find many music rooms, studies, sitting rooms, bedrooms, living rooms, antechambers. You're going to see a creepy chapel, different sanctums, galleries. There's even like an underground system of caves, alchemical laboratories, and it's going to be quite fun for the player characters to start investigating this, and let's check out that room or behind that door, and they're going to find mummified corpses, and they're going to wonder, like, experience that feeling of wonder and perhaps a sense of morbid discovery as they start to examine the different areas and try to find the link between a corpse and this room and how that person died, trying to find out how to escape this Cursed Chateau. So what do I think of the Cursed Chateau? I think, as I was telling you, if somebody were to ask me, hey, Abraham, what do you recommend this adventure? And I would say that it's a masterpiece. But as I was telling you, I personally do. I think it's almost a masterpiece in my perspective, because it would have been nice if there were more ways to escape the Cursed Chateau, and if there were more details of the different non-player characters. But as I was telling you, that could be neutral information. Maybe you actually think that the mechanic of entertaining Jodain works perfectly, or maybe you like those sort of blank spaces in the biographies of the different NPCs, so that you can work your own thing into it. And I actually think that this could potentially be an incredibly scary adventure, because it presents something that brings fear into the hearts of the players, and that's the frustration of not knowing how to solve this mystery. There isn't anything that explicitly indicates that you need to entertain Jodain. You do get some, you read some journals that, oh, I'm Jodain and I'm really bored and stuff like that, but the player character is going to be quite difficult to think, oh, we just need to entertain Jodain enough and maybe he will depart this area and we will be able to get out. But I think that the rewards are worth it. You're going to find a lot of cursed items and relics in the style of the Lamentations of the Flame Princess RPG that have some useful powers, but at the same time some dire consequences to you as well. And if you manage to exorcise the Cursed Chateau, this could actually serve as a base of operations for the player characters. And so I highly recommend that you get this. As I was telling you, I recommend it as a masterpiece of horror role-playing games. And it's quite notable, as I was telling you, that I think that the plotline of this adventure actually surpasses some of the horror movies that were mentioned in the beginning that served as inspiration for this adventure. So if you are looking for an old school scary adventure that brings the dread of frustration, and the player characters and the players are going to feel quite desperate trying to escape this area, and with a lot of room for total party kills, you definitely need to get the Cursed Chateau. Well, thanks for watching my review. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. See you later.